Yeah! Woo! Heck yeah, baby!
Rivers gives to Sproles, angling left, has room, 15, 10, 5, jackpot! He got it! He got it! He got it!
Touchdown, Antonio Gates! 112 career touchdown catches. That's the most by an NFL tight end all time.
I would have hoped that people would have figured it out. I just like to play football.
This is Score More with Garrett Sisti.
Let's go!
What's up, good people? Welcome to another Score More. It's been a while. Your boy's been through some things, but I'm here. We are back. Jamie and Craig is gone. Are gone. It's Thanksgiving week. My brain's turned off. They are both gone. They're traveling with their families for the holidays, so I hope they enjoy their trips. I'm here to give you a podcast. So we got a little something during this holiday week. We got Thanksgiving coming up, or maybe it's Thanksgiving now or it's after. I don't know when you're listening and or watching, but I'm thankful for you guys doing that, being a part of all this, joining us on Discord, listening to the audio version of this podcast, watching the video. Good to see you. I can't see you, but I'm glad you can see me. We're making a connection here. Thank you for joining me. I am so thankful for you guys, and really, I am thankful for Harbaugh and what he's done with this team. They go out and lose on Monday night to Baltimore, but we're talking about a 7-4 team strongly in the playoff hunt in a year where a lot of us thought it was kind of going to be a rebuild, in the first year of their rebuild, and now he's got them strongly in the playoff hunt. They are still behind some of the upper echelon in the AFC teams, and the AFC West team, which is the Chiefs, that upper echelon. And there's going to be some important games. This next 5 stretch is going to be very interesting. Now we know that this Denver game on a Thursday night that got flexed out to a Thursday is going to be pretty important as well, because the Broncos keep nipping at the Chargers' heels there for that second spot in the AFC West. Broncos are in the playoff hunt as well, so that's going to be a pretty important one. We had talked about this 5-game stretch where it was Bengals, it was Ravens, it was Falcons, Chiefs, and Buccaneers, and how those 5 games were going to be pretty tough because those are 5 pretty good football teams. Right now, 1-1 so far. The next 3 games are going to be interesting, but there's a lot of questions coming out of Monday night. They had a really good showing for the first half. They put a beautiful drive together with 24 seconds heading into halftime, methodically move the ball down the field. Dicker kicks a field goal. They bring it within 1, and then it just felt like they were unstoppable. Derrick Henry just ran over the Chargers, and they just couldn't do anything to stop them. Multiple 4th down conversions. There wasn't anything the Chargers could do to really stop that running game. And then once J.K. Dobbins went down, which now we need to discuss, that whole game changed. So J.K. Dobbins now out for some time. There's no specific timeline yet, but it looks like it was a knee injury. So we will see how long he's out. But going forward now, during this stretch that we were talking about, that was so important for his team to kind of, as a measuring stick, to see where they are in terms of other good teams in the NFL. Now they're going to be without J.K. Dobbins for an extended period of time. So now what is this offense going to look like? Gus Edwards, while he had a pretty good game 2 games ago, and, he had a little flashes in Baltimore, especially in the first half with that 4th down conversion early on in that game, but he's really hampered by how bad the interior of this offensive line is. He is a stick his nose in there and run type power runner, and the Chargers just do not have that. Spreading Gus Edwards out wide and having him run off the edges is just not his game. So to force him to run through those A and B gaps with Zion Johnson, Bozeman, and Pipkins struggling as they are is a really tall task. And it's great when he's an RB2, where he's kind of a change of pace thumper behind J.K. Dobbins. But if he's got to be RB1 now, that's an issue. But what we're seeing now is they're going to have to get Kamani Vidal a lot more playing time. Been a healthy scratch last couple weeks, but Hassan Haskins is, contributing nothing on offense. I know he's got a 4th down conversion earlier in the year. He had a a touchdown conversion on a second down against Tennessee as a nice little redemption arc. I appreciate that. Great. But in terms of a long-standing running back in this group, you can't depend on Haskins for anything other than special teams work, which is fine. But now Kamani Vidal is going to have to get a lot more work. And to be honest, he's going to have to be catapulted into that RB1 role. I mean, we could talk about an even split between him and Gus Edwards, but I just don't know how effective you're going to be with Gus on the field when you're having to run up the middle and he just doesn't have the manpower up front to be successful in that group. So I gotta believe that Kamani Vidal is going to get a real uptick in snaps this week. I mean, he's going to have to because Dobbins is out. He did get an uptick when Gus was out, but now, I mean, it feels like it's going to be on his shoulders now because he can get around those edges. He can still go through either gap, and he's also a threat in the pass game, which Gus really isn't. So we're going to see Kamani Vidal hopefully be in a plug-and-play type role with J.K. Dobbins, and I'm excited. I want to see what Kamani Vidal's got. He was an exciting rookie. He flashed earlier in the year. Give him some extra snaps. I'm curious because now you're looking at an outlook going into 2025 and what that season's going to be like. What is going to happen with this running back group? J.K. Dobbins is still there, but how serious is the injury? It's a nice little. It's not nice that J.K. Dobbins gets hurt, but it works out in Vidal's favor because we get to see, how good he can be, and he's got a great opportunity to hopefully propel this Chargers in this pretty tough sled here for the next couple games. So the question now is, what are they going to do with Kamani Vidal, and how big of a snap increase will he get heading into this weekend against the Falcons? My other question, and I mentioned his name just now, but when will Trey Pipkins see less snaps? Because Jamari Salyer in the run game has proven to be a much better fit than Trey Pipkins. There was a point in which during Pipkins' injury, they were splitting snaps between Salyer and Pipkins. I understand Pipkins was part of that best five that Harbaugh was talking about at a training camp, but we're way past that. That's in the rear view. We're talking about currently, Trey Pipkins is getting Herbert almost killed. I mentioned it on the show on Sunday or Monday night after the game, but there is a sack on Herbert where Pipkins got way off balance, got too low. The defensive lineman swam by him, was in Herbert's lap, and slammed Herbert to the ground, and his helmet bounced off the grass. I don't want to see that for a quarterback ever. And that feels like a moment where now he's being a detriment to not only the run game, but now Herbert, and just all the way around. Those three have been bad. But that there's an easy fix with Pipkins because Salyer has had that experience and, in my mind, has been much better in that role. So why not give that to him? Why not start to increase Salyer? Why not do your in-game assessment? Give Pipkins some snaps, give Salyer some snaps, see what works out better. Because by the time playoffs come, hopefully the Chargers are there, you're going to want your best five out there, not the best five you had in training camp, but the best five possible currently. And as of today, Jamari Salyer is the better guard than Trey Pipkins. It was a nice experiment. I understood it. It's run its course. It's time to move on from that. And how much longer is Pipkins going to be here? Salyer could still be here and still could fit a need right now and going into the future. Like I was talking about Kamani Vidal, his opportunity going forward. Why not Salyer's as well? There's got to be some kind of fix here. And if I'm doing it, I'm doing my in-game assessment. I'm getting Trey Pipkins a series. I'm getting Salyer a series. And then I'm probably rolling with Salyer because he's probably going to look better in that series. But it's time to get him some more snaps. Jamari Salyer deserves more snaps than Pipkins at the moment. And at some point, you can't just leave Pipkins out there because he's going to get his quarterback hurt and he's not going to help you in the run game. My other question now, on top of it, because there's a lot of questions coming out of this game against Baltimore. A lot of good, again, like I mentioned, the fact that he's got this team in the thick of the playoff hunt and to compete as much as they did against Baltimore is impressive with the roster he's got on paper. But when you looked at some position groups, and I talked about, some of that got exposed against the Ravens, some of that depth that we had talked about, while they looked good early on in the season, now we're kind of seeing it when you play those teams that are in a tier above the other ones that you've played. Some of that depth kind of shows itself, and it reared its ugly head in the wide receiver room with Quentin Johnston with 3 drops in a row, which now is a problem moving forward because it just felt like last year he had a bad drop. They'd start piling on. It became an avalanche. It got national attention, and then he was never the same after that. And while he made some catches, he was always just felt like he was always playing stiff, and he was in his head, and he was thinking about everything too much. Earlier in the year, he felt like, he's trying to turn the page on that. But after this game, that first catch on that crosser, which has been his bread and butter so far in the NFL, that crosser where he's got it open and can run across the field, run for a first down, that's been where he's been effective. Yes, he's run deep and has some touchdowns, which has been great, but that crosser is where he's made a lot of his money so far through a year and a half. And when he got that ball and it clanked off his hands, after that, it was all over. He was in his head. He was thinking about the next play. He never forgot it. He dropped the next one. He dropped the next one. He got subbed out. It was a mess. It was a time in which the Chargers needed a first down, and Quentin Johnston dropped it. Joshua Palmer, a lot of issues on Monday. Has had issues all season, really. He's good for a catch or two a game, but not consistent enough, stopping on routes too often. There's been too many issues there. So when do we see DJ Chark get some actual snaps? Because while Harbaugh was talking about how he was happy with the wide receiver room and that it was more of it was saying more about the wide receiver room, that DJ Chark wasn't in it yet, that they had enough depth that they don't have him. I mean, let's be honest here. I mean, because he even talked about how he was excited about Quentin Johnston, excited about Joshua Palmer, excited about Ladd McConkey, excited about Jalen Reagor. I mean, come on. If you cannot look yourself in the mirror and say, DJ Chark does not deserve to be a part of this wide receiver group. I mean, all everybody is talking about right now is how bad this wide receiver group depth is. Just today, I mean, it's Wednesday when I'm recording this, and hopefully that's when you're listening. Thank you. Even today, 2 days later, there's talks about, hey, next offseason, Chargers got to go get T. Higgins. It's Ladd McConkey and everybody else. And there is nobody worth, depending upon in that wide receiver group but Ladd McConkey. I mean, that was, I don't know who was it. I think that was from Orlovsky today. So it's extending just outside of Chargers Twitter and us on the podcast and everybody else. This wide receiver group is not good enough. And you have a veteran wide receiver who's proven to be, a nice little wide receiver 2/3 in the NFL for years. Why isn't he getting some run over Palmer and Quentin Johnston and Jalen Reagor, who again had a really bad drop? And I still think that if Quentin Johnston didn't have the game that he did, we'd all be talking about how bad Jalen Reagor is, because everybody knows he's bad and he's got really bad hands. But that drop on a third down where he couldn't hold on to it with the defender coming on, we'd be talking about that a lot more. But anyway, outside of that, I'm not saying outright like catapult him to wide receiver 2 behind Ladd McConkey. I'm just saying we got to start mixing some wide receiver snaps in here. Give him a little bit more snaps. Take Quentin Johnston off the field a little bit more. Take Palmer off the field a little bit more. Take Reagor off the field completely, in my mind. But, if you want to be nice, leave him in for a couple more snaps. But get Chark some snaps. Why is the wide receiver group in Harbaugh's mind so good that Chark can't get 10 to 15 snaps in a game? Not in my mind. I think you're lying to yourself if you're telling yourself that DJ Chark doesn't deserve to be on the field for at least 10 snaps. A healthy scratch, I mean, they need depth. Darius Davis is going to get, part of that depth because he's the returner. But I just don't understand what you're doing with this running or wide receiver rotation when you've been Chark had built up chemistry in training camp with Herbert. It was widely reported. Chark goes down with an injury, comes back, has to work his way back, and is asked, like, hey, he's been scratched 2 weeks in a row. What's going on? And he's saying it's the wide receiver group. Okay. Well, what now? We all saw the wide receiver group. Everybody saw the wide receiver group on Monday night. Get DJ Chark more snaps. My question is, what are you doing? When does he see more snaps? But my answer, which I'm obviously talking to myself here, asking a question and answering, and what I would do, you have got to get him more snaps. I think you have got to at least start working in 10 to 15 snaps going forward. That way you can start building him up a little bit more and ramping up to the playoffs. The playoffs are coming up. We're all talking about playoffs. Playoffs. Chargers are in the hunt for the playoffs, and you got to see what you have heading into the playoffs. If DJ Chark can contribute, get him in there. What are you doing? You can't tell me Jalen Reagor deserves more snaps than DJ Chark. Granted, there might be something going on behind the scenes. I'm not going to speculate, but if we're talking about in a vacuum, NFL player, wide receiver in this current Chargers depth chart, move him up. Move him up and get him more snaps. So that's kind of my offensive questions. And, there's more. I mean, there's a lot of talks about, what are they going to do with tight end? But what's the fix? You know what I mean? Like there's talk about the interior of the offensive line. I gave you one in Salyer. They don't want to do anything with Jordan McFadden, which, again, I just don't understand how he could be a healthy scratch. That man deserves some run after what Zion Johnson is doing this year. And even he has some center snaps. Does he not, anyway, regardless, there's nothing you can do there. J.K. Dobbins now out for some time. Kamani Vidal, can he sustain this offense? I hope so. It seems like he has the skill set to possibly, not manage it 1-for-1, but at least contribute enough that it's not as stale as it was in that second half against Baltimore. Give him a little bit more firepower with a young kid who can get out in the edge, is a threat in the pass game as well. But there's question marks, but things that can be solved right now is get DJ Chark some more snaps, hopefully improve your wide receiver room. And what's wrong with a little bit of competition? Why not push Joshua Palmer and Quentin Johnson a little bit? They're too comfortable right now as it is, in my mind. They've done some very good things. I'm not discounting that. I'm not a prisoner of the moment. But I also will say that those flashes come and go and come and go. And they are not consistently good enough to say, oh, no, they're wide receiver 2 and 3 behind Ladd. Yeah, keep him in. Yeah, Reagor's made a splash player too. He deserves to be wide receiver 4. Stop. That's not the case. And, competitors welcome. Well, then let those guys compete. Let the thing to get Quentin Johnson's mind off of his catches is to push him a little bit more and focus on getting back to the tangible stuff that he can control. And that's going out there and playing football. And if you got somebody on your heels, hopefully that pushes you. And if it doesn't, then you know what kind of player you have. And that's a sad reality, but push him. Push him a little bit. Get DJ Chark in there, please, this week, starting this week. Now, defensively, I have my concerns about Christian Fulton. He's been tremendous to start the year. 2 weeks ago, there's a couple of hiccups. Monday, he had an abysmal drive where he gave up a PI, just grabbing Bateman. And then same thing, they go right after him, go deep. Fulton's grabbing again. Bateman still catches it. It's a touchdown. And we thought, maybe they turned him around. And maybe he has turned around. Maybe he's just, he's been dealing with an injury. Maybe that's part of it. I don't know. But I think there is some concern that he might be coming down to earth a little bit, at least in my mind. I don't want to put that negativity out there, but it's just something to watch. It just feels like he has played so out of his mind that now going against Cincinnati and Baltimore, who happen to be, some of the better teams that they face outside of the Chiefs this year so far, that he decides to struggle against those two good teams. I don't know. It's something to watch. Has Christian Fulton come back down to earth? Hopefully not. I know a lot of people are asking when Zont's coming back because the cornerback depth is a little shaky. Jasir Taylor on the Chargers football team is not a thing I want. He's been fine on special teams, and it would be great if he was just a special teamer. But having Cam Hart out, having Christian Fulton kind of in and out of the lineup, Zont gone for a while. It's just, Jasir Taylor's just had to be there. But at some point, Zont returns, and we kind of see, how he does. Because these rookies have flashed a lot. And it's nice when you're looking at the future with these two and Still and Hart. But they needed Hart last week, you could tell. And Fulton struggling a little bit for 2 weeks. A man who struggled for more than 2 weeks, a long time, to be honest with you, is Alohi Gilman. It just feels like teams are attacking Gilman at this point. And, they went straight after him with Mark Andrews. And it just feels like he is not good enough as a free safety. And that's kind of always been the case. I know they re-signed him and they have confidence in him, but there's got to be better options on the back end. I mean, they just continue to go after him. He continues to make really bad tackles at the second level, and it's hard when your last line of defense lunges too often, especially when he gets closer to the line of scrimmage. He always felt like a strong safety to me coming out of college. I get he's playing the back end, and I know he made some good plays last season and created some turnovers, but where have those been? He had a great year, but I don't think anybody felt like he would consistently put that together year after year. So now going forward, the question is like, how long can you keep him out there without, teams going after him? Because it felt like the Ravens knew exactly what they wanted to do, and that was run at Gilman and attack Gilman through the air. And they did that on multiple occasions. It just, he's not filling the run game good enough, and he's not a good enough tackler there, especially when you got a strong running back like Derrick Henry. And then you get a tight end matched up against him, and there he goes. Gets a touchdown right in front of his face. I mean, they just ran right at him. There was no misdirection. Mark Andrews just picked him up and kind of boxed him out, and it was a touchdown. Stuff like that happens, but Gilman for a couple weeks, and it just feels like there's a play or two throughout the season, each game, where teams target 32 and want to get the ball over there. And so I don't know what they plan to do with Gilman. I don't think they bench him. I don't think that they even cut his snaps a little bit. But Molden has at least proved that he can get some turnovers. He kind of seems like he's a ball magnet at this point, getting the most turnovers on the team. I like Molden on the back end, but he's got his issues too. So Alohi Gilman is a guy you got to start watching as you go through these games here the next 3 weeks, because Baltimore went after Gilman. Will Atlanta try to do the same thing? KC, Tampa Bay, we'll kind of see. But Gilman has had some real issues. And the other group of players that have had some issues and some injuries are these edge rushers. I mean, when can we see a consistent run of games from Mack, Tooley, Dupree, and Bosa? I know Mack has been injured. I know Bosa's been injured, but I mean, they were nowhere last week. When the Chargers needed a pass rush, needed to help contain Lamar Jackson, I mean, they did a nice job making sure that he didn't go out and run a lot, but I mean, they were just not, whenever they dropped back to pass, it didn't feel like Lamar Jackson even, thought about them. He had enough time in the pocket to do whatever he wanted. So the question is, and the concerns I have is like, how consistent is this group going to be? I just don't know. And I really hope, Bosa's talking about how he's still struggling and he should be healthy 100%, at least towards the end of the year. And that'd be great heading into the playoffs. But I mean, yeah, he got some pressures last week against Cincy, but that offensive line is terrible. That Bengals offensive line has been a mess for a long time, and it's consistently bad. And this year has been their downfall. And that's why their team hasn't been very good overall, is because how bad that offensive line has. And great, they got some pressures, but I mean, how many sacks are we getting? I mean, we're not getting after the quarterback enough if we're, in that group talking to those guys, because that was supposed to be the strength of this defense, and they have not kicked it. Now, if they can consistently put something together, you might have something with this defense, because at the second level, Perryman was hurt and they missed him in the run game a lot on Monday. And kudos to this staff and to Denzel Perryman, because he looks like a totally different player than he was with the Chargers and against the Raiders, or Texans, I think was the other team he was with. He has been a monster in the run game, and they really needed him against Henry. And hopefully he comes back soon and can help with that run defense, which was suspect this past week on Monday against the Ravens. But yeah, with a consistent pass rush, the way the linebackers are playing, and if these corners can kind of turn this around, you might have something with this defense. You've already got a pretty good defense, but for 2 weeks they've, suffered at the hands of two hot offenses. And we'll see how it goes against Atlanta, who's kind of reeling at the moment. Lost to the Saints. They got their asses handed to them against the Broncos. So hopefully the Chargers can put this together and we can feel a little bit better after a pretty nice win against Atlanta, and then on to the Chiefs, and we'll see going forward. But those are the questions I have. I know you've got them too. If there's something I missed, feel free to send it. I'm sure there's a million little nitpicks we can make, but those feel like wholesale big changes that are concerning at this point. And they can obviously turn it around, but things we gotta look at going forward and into the playoffs, hopefully. So thanks for watching. Happy Thanksgiving. Appreciate you guys. And hopefully on Sunday, the Chargers score more.